data storage on your web app, you could enable data storage as soon as it is on AWS Amplify. That's what Amplify lets you do. You could include user authentication on your application on AWS. So it is so seamless. It's on Amplify. All of this you can just natively do without having to write all this code to actually get it done. And later on, I'm going to share tutorials that you can actually follow that will teach you, show you how you can actually get started with this. And when I started to do it, and I'm not a developer, I'm not a web app or any kind of app developer at all, I couldn't believe how seamless it was and how quickly I could actually get going. So I'm going to share all these links with you, and then you can just check them out later on. And so I've already said you're hosting your app on AWS Amplify, and you could add AI/ML capabilities onto your app as it is on AWS Amplify. We're going to do a demo later on and then just see how to actually get going with all of this. So I was asking you later on who is using what frameworks. So AWS Amplify supports iOS, it supports Android, Flutter, React Native, and web development. And frameworks that we supply, support, frameworks like Vue, React, and Next.js. So again, the topic of today, we're talking about serverless. And before we carry on, myself and Adeline, because we're talking about serverless web applications today, a quick recap of what is serverless. I don't know if there's anyone on the call that would like to let us know what they understand when people talk about serverless. If you're brave enough, you could either unmute yourself and talk, or you can just say in the chat what you understand serverless to be.
Hi everyone.
Hello. Raymond, are you wanting to tell us? Great. I see there is a response from Mohammed. Oh, I see the chats have got. Yeah. So I'm seeing we all understand this the same. You are not responsible for the management of the infrastructure. You are not provisioning it, and someone else takes care of it. And in this case, it would be AWS taking care of it. So we get it. So that is the recap of what serverless is. Thank you, everyone, for responding. So then again, just a quick a recap. Today we're talking serverless web application hosting, and I am talking about a service that lets you do dynamic and static content, and Adeline is going to talk about a service that lets you do just static website hosting. Now I'm going to share my screen because I want to walk you through a few things and then share those links and then be done, and then I can hand over to Adeline. So I'm going to share the links of tutorials that you can check out, and these will help you get going with how to host websites on Amplify. And I would really appreciate it if you do manage to go through or work through any of these tutorials, you actually share on social media and tag me so that I know. I think that would be great just to see what we all are learning and building out of the interactions that we have. So I'm going to share my screen now because I want to just walk you through a few things. I think you are seeing the screen. So, okay, that is my AWS account. But before I go there, because I'm going to do a very quick demo, I'm going to host an app on Amplify. I mentioned about tutorials that we have that we can actually follow. So I'm going to follow, this is the tutorial that I'm actually following, but I'm only going to do step 1 of this tutorial. And then the rest, I will challenge you to do and finish in your own time. So I talked about how you can host a website on Amplify and you can add storage onto it. You can add authentication onto it. And as you build more, you just extend it and it's already there on AWS Amplify. And this tutorial that I've got two tutorials that I'm sharing. The first one is 30 minutes long, and the other one is more advanced, is 2 hours long. So once you feel that you're more comfortable with a 30-minute long one, once you get going with that and you see what it does, you can move on if you want to challenge yourself and do the 2 hour long one. So whichever one of these two you use, you can still tag me, and then we can just take a look at that. So this is the one that we're looking at. So it's got 5 steps that you can actually go through. You start by creating your web app, and as you go through the tutorial, you're going to see that they provide you with all sample code that you need, and the next step would be you are now building a serverless function. I talked before about other services of AWS that once your app is on AWS, you can start actually connecting to your application and you extend it that way. So building a serverless function is there we are actually using a service known as AWS Lambda, which is also a serverless service on AWS that lets you host your code. So code for your backend, you would normally host on AWS Lambda, and then you're linking that function now to your web application. So you're linking your back end to your front end. So what you did with your create web app, you did your front end hosting, and then you built your back end, your second step, and then now you're linking your back end to your front end. So there's an API that you are exposing to let them talk to each other, and then you created a data table, because I talked before about that you can add data storage onto your application as soon as it's on AWS. Now you're creating your data table, and then you add, the last step is to add interactivity to your web app. So what you're doing in that step is your front end via the API is calling your back end, and your back end is accessing your data storage. So you are storing data onto your table, and then you can read it back if you want to do that. So that's what the tutorial actually does. 30 minutes, and then you can have an app that's up and running. And the first time when I actually ran this, it took me about 45 minutes, but it's not about how long it takes you, it's about what you're actually learning. But I mean, I'm saying I'm not experienced in this, but I could still get an app up and running in 45 minutes. And then the more advanced one, I will share all these links, takes you 2 hours. There's a lot more involved in this one. I hosted a workshop with the Nigeria user group last year virtually, and we did this, and it took us 3 hours, because you can imagine there were other people on the call. There were about 58 people, I think, who attended, but we still finished it in about 3 hours with breaks in between, which wasn't bad. So this is a more advanced one. You can just move on to this as well once you feel a little bit more comfortable, and then you can get going with that. The last link that I'm going to share with you is a website that we have here, the serverless team that builds your lambdas, your API gateways. They sit in Seattle. They actually created this site, and this is where they share all resources that help you do or learn all things serverless. And I will share that link as well. So I owe you 3 links, and actually owe you 4 links. The first one I've already shared with you, and that is the survey that we'd love you guys to do at the end, to tell us what you thought about today, how things could have been better, and what you actually want us to do. And the reason that surveys are so important is that as AWS, they actually give us an indication of what you're expecting and how we can better support you. So you'll see when you go into the survey, there's an open block. Say whatever. We're not gonna know who sent it. It's anonymous, so we can't see your name or anything about you. Just let us know what you think and what we can actually do better. So now I'm going to go on to onto my account, and I am going to host an application on AWS Amplify. I've timed out. Let me just log in very quickly, and then I'll go back. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the AWS console, this is what it would look like. And we always, when you are building, especially using the console, always highlight. You'll see when you do a lot of these workshops, we will highlight the fact that you need to make sure that you're in the correct region. Because sometimes you can, I know with the one that we looked at with 5 things to do, you don't want to do one thing in region one and do something else in another region, because then your workshop or what you're trying to build is not working and you don't understand why. So always making sure. For this, I'm just going to use US East one, which is North Virginia. And this is what the console would look like, or close to this. I don't think I've done the upgrade yet, so I still have the old console, but similar to this. And the service that we're going to work with is just AWS Amplify. So I've clicked onto it. So what you're going to see, the very first screen that you're going to see, it's just doing a recap of everything that I already talked about. That what Amplify lets you do is that it's a fast and easy way for you to develop mobile and web apps that actually scale. And talking about scaling, once you do the deployment, you're going to be issued with a URL, and that URL is automatically hosted on CloudFront on AWS, which is it lets you scale your websites. That's now when your customers try to access, they can access your website or your web app from anywhere in the world. So this allows you to actually go global in minutes. When we talk about cloud letting you go global in minutes, CloudFront is actually a huge part of that. And I talked about that Amplify is a set of tools and products. And so what you can do, you can either build or you can host. And now I'm going to start, because I'm not doing the build side of it. I'm doing the host your website side of it. I mentioned, or I did not mention it. So in at the end of 2021, last year December, at reInvent, we announced another or an extension of Amplify, which is Amplify Studio. Studio gives you just a visual way of building your websites. We are actually it's a collaboration with most of you might be familiar with a design tool or design prototyping tool known as Figma. So when you build, you go onto Amplify Studio and integration with Figma, and you do the design of what your layout would look like. And components like your buttons and all of those are there. Once you're done with your design, you bring it back to Amplify, and then you can further work on it. Now, accessing it via either the Amplify CLI, just to now using code to further customize what you've just done on Amplify Studio via Figma. So that's what the Build an App is actually about. Hosting your web app is you already you've done the coding for it, and you just want to host it somewhere. And once it's here, you can still carry on working on it. So we're going to go with the host your web app side of it, because I've got an HTML already that I'm just going to deploy onto here and work with that. So Amplify integrates with a couple of repos. You can connect it to GitHub if that's where your code is, connect it to Bitbucket, GitLab, AWS Code Commit, which is an AWS version of GitHub. Just a very few differences between the two, but it's mainly what it does. You that's where your source code is actually residing. Or you can deploy without a Git provider. I'm going to do deploy without a Git provider, and you're going to see what that actually looks like. And so yes, so these are the Git repos that you can actually just integrate with, and then you can have CI/CD behind this. So every time you change your code in your GitHub, there's an automatic update and build again that happens on AWS Amplify. So that's what's so great about this. So I'm doing a deploy without a Git provider, and I'm going to continue. So now this is the next screen you're going to get. Because I've said no Git repo, it wants to know where is my source code actually residing. So it could be on your local computer, and this is a folder that you just drag it from. You've got an HTML there, or it could be in the Amazon S3 bucket, or there's a URL that you're pointing it to where it needs to get it from. So I'm going to give my app a name, and I will just call it GitHub Kenya. Call it whatever you want. And environment, you can, it could be dev, test, staging, whatever you want to point to right now. And then I'm doing a drag and drop because I've got an HTML already in my here on my computer, and I'm going to drag that, and I'm going to choose the file. And what is important, we're going to look at it now, is you see I've got an index HTML there, that's the actual file, and I have it zipped. You cannot directly uh, upload the file. It has to be zipped first, and that's what you actually upload. So I'm choosing that. This is very simple. What it does is it just display name. It just allows your user of your app to just capture a name and a surname. That's what this all does, nothing else. We're gonna see now. So I have drag and dropped, and I'm gonna do save and deploy. Save and deploy automatically will, so it creates your app, and then you're going to be issued with a URL. I did mention your URL CloudFront. You're going to be issued with that. And once that's been done and is successful, already you will be able to access your app and see what is actually done. So my deployment is successfully completed. And that is the URL that I have. I've got a domain now already. Someone asked about hosting and pricing, and that's it already. So once you have this, so this would have been step one here. So once you have this, you can go on and do more things and just extend that app that you've got. And that is the end of my demo. And I'm going to answer that question that I got about pricing by actually sharing a link that will be the best way, because with pricing, it's not a once-off answer. It depends on a lot of other things that you need to consider. So I'm just going to advise you that you look at that, and then you can just determine that way. And I will share all of those links now that I talked about in the chat, and then you can look at them. Is there anyone else who's got any questions right now before I hand over to Adeline, because she's actually the main speaker for today? I'm just going through. Any questions on what I just talked about before I share the links and I disappear? So did you see how quick that was? And I mean, for someone who's not a developer like me, and we're going to hear now, Michael, we're going to go to the S3 bucket. We're going to see what Adeline actually takes us through. I don't want to answer that question because I'll leave that up to Adeline. So I'm going to share all those links in, and you can just try this out yourself. And I'm sure you don't believe what I just did. You can try it out for yourself, and you can see how quick this is. And this is the first workshop that I'm sharing before I go and then hand over to Adeline. I shared the first workshop.
Hi, Melissa.
Yes.
Can I ask something? I just want to understand, because I mean, from a serverless perspective, in terms of Lambda, you actually pay for invocations of those specific Lambda. I just want to understand from an Amplify perspective, what is it backed by? Is it backed by Lambda, or is it just backed by EC2 instance is sitting on the back end that we do not really manage? Because I just want to understand from a website perspective, how is that being hosted on Amplify itself?
So Amplify is also serverless. So there is no provisioning for you to do as well. So underlying would be infrastructure that you don't even get to see or even worry about because you're not provisioning that. So it's serverless, just like Lambda is serverless. And then when you talk about invocations, it's where now the execution starts to happen. So you want to understand once execution of what's hosted on Amplify starts to happen, you want to understand pricing around that. Is that what you want to discuss?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to understand the difference, because when we say serverless, I'm thinking of Lambda, because on Lambda, you're only paying for invocations of your code, for
Yes.
instance. But when it comes to
Yes.
Amplify, I just wanted to understand, what is that backed by? Is it backed by Lambda, for instance? Or is it backed by another service, for instance, an EC2 instance on the backend? I know that we don't really
Okay.
provision the infrastructure on the backend, but from a serverless perspective, is it backed by Lambda as well?
No, it won't be. So it would be the same principle as Lambda. As much as Lambda, we don't really know what was actually underlying that. It would be the same with Amplify as well. So it's the same
Okay.
principle. They are both serverless services on AWS. Both
Okay.
of them, the underlying infrastructures, AWS provisions and takes care of for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. I think I've
I
shared
have
all
a,
the links and yes, there's another question.
yeah, I have a question. I was thinking like um that after you have deployed the application, the that endpoint which is you get there, like is it automatically mapped with to the cloud front?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, okay,
So you do nothing to get that going. It is.
okay, okay. Thank you, thank you.
Okay. I see okay. I see there's a couple of questions. I've shared the survey. I've shared the all the links to all the URLs I talked about. I have someone asked about S3, and I'm going to leave that for Adeline. CI/CD is automated, yes. So if you have connected your GitHub repo or whatever repo you're using, CI/CD is actually automated for you. Yes, it is automated. Optimization, I'm just trying to just, if you can just let me understand what you mean by that, and then we can talk about that more. How I see there's another question around deploying across multiple AZs. That is all. So when you're talking AZs, you are thinking server, you are thinking EC2, and that's where the whole AZ concept actually is. With serverless, it's not something that it's quite tricky to change the mindset from, because where you've got EC2s that you are provisioning, you can actually see you are saying, I want it to be in that AZ and I want the other one to be in that AZ. But with serverless, all of that again is taken care of for you automatically behind the scenes. You don't even get to see how that's done. But with that URL that you get, that is automatic availability of your application globally.
A quick question. Hello.
Yes.
From the server perspective, I haven't handled the cloud stuff. So I've been hearing of the cloud architecture and the serverless apps. So what's the main difference between serverless and the old way of doing things? What's the
Okay.
difference? Because here I say you have automated links and you don't need to configure stuff, and yeah. So if you can elaborate on that.
Yes. So I'm going to use an example where you need a VM to deploy your application. So you would deploy your VM, whether you are doing that on premises or it's in the cloud, you would provision that, and then you would do all configuration of it. And then only would you then bring your code onto it, that's deploying your app on it. That's the server side of things. Serverless, you just bring your code. So like with an example is AWS Lambda, which is where you would host your code on AWS, usually like your back end of your application. All you do is to bring your code. The underlying what machine is going to be sitting on, you don't provision, you don't even get to see, worry. There isn't even a place for you to go and say, I want that machine. It is all taken care of for you by us. Or if you are deploying somewhere else, by someone else. We don't even get to see that. So that's the main difference. And what I usually talk about when I talk about, for me, why I enjoy serverless is that with the side where you are provisioning all the servers yourself, there's a lot that you need to understand and be very good with in order to be able to do all of that. Your how networks, your networking, you configuring that, how you specifying security is different. So for someone who's usually not from that kind of a background, it can be a bit overwhelming. And with serverless, all of that is taken care of for you by AWS, and that's the main difference. And I think I should stop here and leave time for Adeline. And any other questions, you all can reach out to me on social media and ask, or if there's still time at the end of this, I can answer those. Thank you very much, Adeline. I'm gonna hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Belisa, for taking us through that. And I'll just go straight away to my presentation. Mhm. So I'm Adeline Makoha, working at Safaricom as a software tester, and I'm glad to be here to share content about AWS, about Amazon S3. And so what is Amazon S3? Basically, Amazon is a simple, S3 is a simple storage service, and it's used to store and retrieve the data, any amount of that data that is stored in AWS in the bucket. And then we have features for Amazon S3. We have durability. It offers 11 nines of durability. And for availability, it also offers 4 nines availability. And there is also the feature for security, encryption end-to-end, and we can use a feature called key management service for encryption purposes. For S3, it has unlimited scalability, and the cost is very low. Yes, for the use cases, we are going for our case, our demo is about the static website, and we will be hosting a static website, a short demo. And you can also use S3 to apply for application hosting or for backup and storage. For instance, you have so much data you can store in the cloud in S3 to be precise, and also for software delivery. We have two types of URL to name our buckets. You can use the virtual hosted style URL, and you can also use the path style URL. We note that Amazon S3 is a public service and can access via the public endpoints. So the object attributes, we have the key name, which is the name of our bucket, and it should be globally unique. So once you set your name, no one else should use that name. And then for the versioning ID, the ID is supposed also to be unique in the sense that when your image, you add another version, like when you make your image more clear, the versioning will tend to alter. So you cannot erase the data, and also you can keep all your images, either the previous one and the new image. For the value is just the content about the object which are being stored in the bucket. Sub-resources, metadata, that's the same thing. Sub-resources also, they're attached to our object and to our bucket. Access control, this is the permission that we're going to allow in order to access our object in the buckets. Yes, and here is a picture of a S3 gateway. So like for instance, if I want to get my objects from the bucket, you can see like my EC2 instance has to use an S3 gateway endpoint so that I can access the data that is in the S3, be it private or public subnet. And then the policy, this is the permission that we're going to define for our demo or for our bucket so that we can allow our users to access the objects that are in our bucket. Identity-based policy for identity are like the IAM user, group, and role that you attach to the policy so that you can allow the policy, the group to access permission to the policies. And for the resources based policy, for resource is, for instance, here is our bucket. So we are attaching a resource based policy to our Amazon S3 bucket. And then here is the architecture that I'm going to showcase in my presentation, my demo part.
Mhm.
And it will entail the correct URL and the wrong URL. So let me just stop sharing this. Okay, let's go to the demo part.
Hey, what's Sonic the Hedgehog? One.
Okay, here we go. So I have already logged into my console, as you can see, and we'll go straight to S3. So you can use the navbar to navigate or to search. And then we will be creating our new bucket. So let's say user group Kenya. So make sure you remember the point that our bucket should be unique. And we will also choose the region. By default is US East North Virginia. And then this one, it should remain that way. To block public access, here we will uncheck here so that we can enable the users to access our resources. And then bucket versioning is disabled by default. So we'll just proceed in creating our buckets. Yes, and here we go. So we click on the bucket name and then we upload our two files. I already had the two files in my local computer, so I'm just proceeding to upload them. Yes, and then So we will navigate to the properties and enable our static website hosting. By default is disabled. And then the document that we are uploading is index.html and error.html. So what we need here is the URL that will be guiding us through the object. So we will copy this to be used later after we have defined our policies. So we go to permissions, and in permission we will edit our bucket policy like the one we had in our presentation in the slides. So we are editing the principal. And then the effect is allow action. Our action is that we want to get our S3. To get our object, I mean. To get our object, then the resource, for resource, we are going to copy this bucket ARN. And then in order to obtain all the objects that we have placed in our buckets, you are supposed to put / and asterisk. Yes, so we will save the changes that you have made.
A quick question.
Yes.
When doing your coding, does the capital letters or small letters matters? Does the syntax really matters when you are putting your codes? Like, for example, principle, you say the SID statement 1. If the S was in small letters, does it really matter?
No, because it's just a string. Like here, I can also change it. I don't think if it matters.
Yeah, like you can put it in capital letter statement 1.
Yeah.
Capital letter.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so you're using is being done in JSON, eh?
Yes, JSON.
Your policies are being written down in JSON.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then so we take the link that we early copied. We paste it in our browser. Yes, so this is the document that I have uploaded. It was in HTML. So welcome to our demo, blah, blah, blah. And then so when we try to put it a different route, let me say user, it will take you to the other file that we uploaded about the error file. Yes, I think that's all about my demo and my presentation. Any question?
Okay, a quick question. Does this only host HTML websites, or you can also do stuff like Next.js applications, React apps? Is the approach the same with the one you've just demonstrated?
Yes, the approach is the same, and you can also use Python.
Can I just come in there quickly? So when I did the intro right at the beginning, I did say S3 website hosting is for static website. So with that, you cannot do a lot with it. If you want to go more advanced websites, that's when you then move across to AWS Amplify that I just demoed. So Amplify, you'll do static and dynamic content, but on S3, you just do static content. But yes, what Adeline said about approach being the same, that is true, because you've got you can still have your backend hosted on Lambda with Python, whatever else that you actually want to write that in Java or whatever it is. So the architecture is the same, approach is the same. But if you want to be more interactive, more dynamic, it's AWS Amplify.
Back to you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Adeline, for the demo. Maybe also someone I can maybe add a little, maybe because I know to that in regard to like security. Somebody might ask like if you want maybe to have the sites like not publicly accessible, like that's what Veliso and also was speaking, that you could have your static site on S3 and also interconnect that with the CloudFront without having the static site or the static bucket publicly accessible. Anyway, that is just something which I wanted to point out. But in a nutshell, I have enjoyed the presentations from Adeline and Velisa, and I hope to see other like people in the meetup also volunteering to do presentation and sharing knowledge, because that's how we get to learn new stuff. Like for me today, I've loved the Amplify stuff. I'm gonna go and have like I will have to play with it and get to see other capabilities which it brings to the table. So maybe we can have the cameras on, and then we take some screenshots. I see Samuel also is here, my other co-organizer. Samuel, maybe you can say something, and then we can switch on the cameras and take some screenshots. Samuel, can you hear me? Okay. Let's switch on the camera. Okay. Yeah. Samuel?
Hey, hi everyone.
Hi, Samuel. Is this Samuel? Okay. Let's switch on the cameras and we take some screenshots. Guys, you can switch on the cameras. We have some screenshots at least. yeah, it's usually nice to have a record of the event we have, where we see that our community, because yeah, it's I don't know why I'm not able to see. Oh, nice. Let me take some screenshots.
People need to smile for the camera.
Okay.
Can I just?
Thank you, guys. For me, I don't have anything else to say. Maybe if somebody wants to say something.
Can I just say something quickly?
Okay, sure.
I'm checking. I can see the survey. Some of you have started to complete it already, and thank you so much for that. So I'm actually going to share what I'm getting. It's very nice feedback that you all are giving. I will share this with the organizers of this meetup, and maybe they can use that going forward. And some people are asking about jobs at AWS. And if you're in my LinkedIn group on LinkedIn, you'll see I share roles a lot, and we are hiring for Kenya quite a bit. So join the LinkedIn group and stay close to what I post there. And let me just share the link for you to join the LinkedIn group very quickly. And if you scroll through, you will see we're starting to post roles for Kenya and looking for various roles. There was a solution architect role that was on the go. There's account managers, and I'm going to share this here. But you are not limited to just Kenya. You know this because AWS is a global company. Go in, create yourself a profile. I'm going to share the Amazon jobs link as well. Create yourself a profile, and then you can actually indicate if you are happy to relocate for a role in there when you create your profile. And you never know who's going to call you from where and they move you there. So there's that. But thank you for the feedback already on the surveys. I'm going to share this with the user group leaders, and they can decide how to what topics to bring going forward. And if you have not completed, please send that feedback. It's exactly what I'm saying. It helps us actually decide what to do. See, I wasn't going to talk about jobs until I looked and I saw someone asking about jobs, and now I'm sharing about jobs. Maybe it's helping everyone. So it's very helpful that you give us that feedback. Thank you so much. I don't have anything else to say, Tony. Adeline, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's the right time now to tell everyone to have a great weekend, and people can go and have some bottle of beers.
A very quick question from my end, Tony.
Okay.
Are you going to share this recording by any chance?
Of course. I'm going to share on the Slack on our Slack channel.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.